Well, for more on Japan's booming tourism sector, we're joined by travel expert Mark Murphy. Mark, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Rachelle.
Now, Japan has seen a surge in inbound visitors. Where are they mainly coming from, and what's the main appeal of coming to Japan?
Well, we talk about food in the fish market, so the food is fascinating, the culture is fascinating. I traveled there right after the earthquake and the tsunami and was blown away by how spectacular the country is. And I think that's why people go there. It's a really interesting place to travel to. You've got tremendous food and great experiences, and it's a pretty diverse place in terms of the things you can see and do, from the different wards in Tokyo to getting up to the north to places like Sendai, where we went to visit after the devastation from the tsunami, you know, all the way down to the southern portion of the country. So I think that that's a big part of it. I think you're seeing a huge surge in Chinese tourists, and in fact, the Chinese traveler represents the largest inbound segment to Japan today, and that's continuing to grow. Last year it grew over 20% from the year before, and I believe it's somewhere around 6.5 million Chinese travelers visited Japan in 2016, and that's going to grow again close to 20% again this year based on the current trends through June.
Now let's also look at Tsukiji, obviously the fate of the world's largest wholesale seafood market. In central Tokyo, now reports are saying it may relocate and then reopen as a food theme park within the next 5 years. Why is there so much controversy about this?
Well, you know what? It's such a tradition. I went there years ago and experienced the fish market, and it's just utter chaos. I mean, you're dodging these vehicles that are moving fish and crates and everything else and ice around. And as tourists, you're actually getting in the way of folks doing their business. But it's such a huge place, and there's so much interest in it that they can't keep the tourists out, and it's become a magnet for them. The key is the wholesale portion of it is still very restricted. The outer part of it, where they have the different shops and the food stalls, and you can also see a lot of the work taking place, is there. So it was on my bucket list when I went to Tokyo. I had to go. I think that's how most people go. And then, of course, there's a business that develops around it. Tours revolve around it. So when you book a trip to Tokyo, many times they're going to ask you if you want to do a tour of the fish market. And who wouldn't want to do a tour of a place that does $7 billion worth of transactions in a year, and economically is huge to Japan because it represents about, all the way down the line, somewhere close to 60,000 jobs are impacted by that standalone fish market that you know in Tokyo.
So give us an idea in terms of the broader economy. Just how important is the tourism sector economically to Japan?
Well, you know, the overall number in terms of their GDP is still single digits, but what a lot of countries are realizing, just like Japan, one of the best things to do to bring in currency and to actually drive their economy is travel and tourism. So you're seeing many countries around the world embracing tourism, understanding that it helps overall with the infrastructure projects, because you're going to want to have great infrastructure for travel and tourism. The beauty of Japan is their infrastructure with the high-speed trains and getting around the country are superb. So it's a fantastic place to travel. And then those dollars that are brought in, the economic impact, everybody from the waitress at the restaurant to the food service companies that provide for the restaurants to the taxi drivers, you know, to the retail stores for the shopping. Because, you know, the interesting thing about the Chinese tourists, they represent about 26% of the folks coming into the country in Japan, but they represent almost 40% of the spending. So they're outspending their, you know, arrival numbers by almost double, about 70%, and that's having a huge economic impact on so many fronts in Japan. That's why it's such an important part of most countries' marketing and promotion these days, to bring those folks into their respective countries.
And we're certainly seeing Japan upping the ante, saying they want to now reach about 40 million. So what are some of the more creative ways that the country is trying to lure tourists?
Well, what's happening is you're seeing an intra-Asia. People may come for, you know, a 3-night, 4-night, 5-night type of experience. However, if you're traveling longer distances, you are probably going to stay longer. So what they're looking to do is they're looking to maintain and grow their intra-Asia business, but they're also looking outside of Asia for longer haul markets, because those folks who come, let's say someone like me coming from the New York area, I'm not going to go for 3 or 4 nights. I'm going to go for 10 or 12 nights, and my economic impact is going to be magnified as a result of that. So by bringing in some of those folks who are going to travel and stay for longer periods, you're going to increase the economic impact, and I think you're going to see a shift for a lot of the Asian countries in terms of trying to bring in that long-haul traveler more so.
All right, well, thank you so much for your insights, and happy travels. Travel expert there, Mark Murphy.